Welcome to the House of Wisdom. Here, you can enjoy the essence of great books and learn valuable lessons without spending hours reading. Whether you're driving, training, or multitasking, the House of Wisdom brings engaging audiobook summaries right to you. Sit back, relax, and let us share the wisdom of books in a way that fits perfectly into your busy lifestyle. Have you ever thought about what it takes to gain full control over your mind and achieve the impossible? Today, we delve into the remarkable life of David Goggins through his book Can't Hurt Me. This isn't just a book, it's a powerful lesson in mental toughness and resilience. From surviving a traumatic childhood to becoming a Navy SEAL and an ultra-endurance athlete, David's journey is a testament to the incredible strength of the human spirit. Stay with us to discover how you, too, can break past your limits and achieve the unthinkable. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this extraordinary journey. Chapter 1. Introduction. David Goggins believes that most people only tap into about 40% of their true potential. According to him, we often fail to unlock our full abilities, stopping far short of what we're actually capable of. Throughout his life, he has shattered his own limits time and time again, proving that we can push ourselves much further than we think. If he can do it, so can you. No matter the pain, fear, or obstacles you face, you have the power to transform yourself into someone you never thought possible. This summary will guide you on that path. David's story begins in a wealthy New York neighborhood, where his father owned a successful business called Skateland, a roller rink with a bar on the second floor. His mother was a homemaker, 17 years younger than his father, and he had an older brother named Tris Jr. From the outside, their family appeared normal, but behind closed doors, it was anything but. David's father had a violent temper and ruled the household with an iron fist. He forced his family to work at Skateland every night. At just 8 years old, David was responsible for maintaining roller skates and collecting rent from customers, while his mother worked as a cashier. Any mistake resulted in brutal punishment. One night, his father dragged his mother down the stairs from the second floor and smashed her head against a wall. When David tried to defend her, he was beaten with a belt. Despite the abuse, his mother endured years of suffering before finally deciding she had enough. One morning, during breakfast, she took one of her husband's rarely used credit cards and car. She announced that she was leaving. David and his brother quickly stuffed their belongings into garbage bags as their father hurled insults at their mother. But her decision was final. David and his mother moved to Indiana, where his grandparents lived, in search of a fresh start. However, by the time he entered second grade, he still couldn't read or write. Fortunately, he had a dedicated teacher, Sister Catherine, a strict but kind-hearted nun who worked tirelessly to help him learn. By the end of the year, David could finally read and write. Sister Catherine also taught him an important lesson about human nature. His father always wore a smile but was a cruel man, while Sister Catherine rarely smiled but was genuinely good-hearted and supportive. By third grade, David faced another academic hurdle. His school required students to write in cursive, but he had only just learned to read and write in capital letters. This struggle set him even further behind. Meanwhile, his older brother couldn't adjust to their new life and chose to return to New York to work at Skateland with their abusive father. David and his mother moved into public housing, relying on government assistance for food and basic needs. His mother found a job at a store and enrolled in a state university, attending classes after work to build a better future. At school, David was the only black student and struggled academically. His teacher suspected he had ADHD and placed him in a special program, but instead of receiving additional support, he was often sent out of the classroom. This experience only deepened his struggles, making him fearful of people and anxious in social situations. Chapter 2. Truth Hurts. David struggled to keep up in school, unable to grasp the lessons being taught. Desperate to pass, he resorted to cheating, allowing him to progress from elementary school to high school without truly mastering the material. However, as a teenager, his life was filled with anger and frustration. Attending a high school with 12,000 students, David was one of only 5 black students, making him a frequent target of discrimination. He was often subjected to racial slurs and derogatory remarks, which only deepened his resentment. One particular incident left a lasting mark on him. While walking down the street with his cousin, a car drove by, and a white boy inside shouted racial insults at them. Initially, they ignored it, but moments later, the car came to a halt. The boy stepped out, aimed a gun at David's head, and held him at gunpoint. David stood frozen, overwhelmed with fear. After what felt like an eternity, the boy finally got back in the car and drove away. The experience left David seething, not just because his life had been threatened, but because the people who insulted and targeted him knew nothing about him. They judged him not by his actions or character but by the color of his skin. They despised him without reason, and some even wished him dead. By his junior year, David had had enough. Instead of fighting back, he began conforming to the stereotypes people had of him. He dressed in oversized baggy clothes, changed his hairstyle, and embraced an aggressive, rebellious persona. His grandfather, a retired Air Force cook, had gifted him a second-hand car for his birthday. David installed an enormous speaker system, blasting hip-hop music as he drove to school, his way of asserting his identity in a world that seemed determined to suppress it. But despite his defiance, his life was spiraling downward. He was failing nearly every subject, skipping school frequently, and on the verge of dropping out. His mother eventually received a letter from the school warning that if he didn't improve his grades in his senior year, he wouldn't graduate. However, David had a dream, one inspired by his grandfather, who took great pride in his Air Force service and still wore his uniform to church every Sunday. Fascinated by the elite pararescue soldiers who performed daring airborne rescue missions, David set his sights on joining the Air Force. But there was a major obstacle. Admission required passing the ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, the military's equivalent of the SAT. This realization became a turning point in David's life. Staring at himself in the mirror, he had a moment of brutal self-awareness. His future was entirely in his own hands. His mother had moved forward with her life, completing her education and securing a job as a university instructor. She had fought tirelessly to overcome her struggles, and David knew he had to do the same. Determined to take control of his destiny, he made drastic changes. He shaved his head, abandoned his rebellious image, and distanced himself from the anger that had consumed him. He also stopped listening to hip-hop, realizing that music alone wouldn't change his circumstances. Instead, he poured his energy into self-improvement. David imposed a strict routine on himself. Every morning, at 5 a.m., he woke up to exercise, pushing his body to its limits regardless of the weather. He ran miles every day, rain or shine, as part of his newfound discipline. More importantly, he dedicated himself to his studies with relentless focus. Knowing that he needed to memorize vast amounts of information, he developed a study technique. He would read, write down what he learned, and then recite it out loud 2 or 3 times. Repetition became his greatest ally. For 6 months, David followed this grueling routine without faltering. And in the end, his efforts paid off. He passed the ASVAB test and successfully completed high school. Chapter 3. The Impossible Task. When training began, David stood 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 175 pounds. He excelled in physical endurance exercises such as running, push-ups, sit-ups, and flutter kicks. However, swimming was a vital skill for pararescue training, and David struggled with it. Due to financial constraints, his mother had never been able to afford swimming lessons for him. Throughout training, David had to complete several water-based exercises. Instructors assessed trainees' underwater confidence, as rescue missions often required jumping into the ocean. This was where David encountered his greatest challenge. His performance in water exercises was significantly weak, and his scores reflected his struggles. The underwater training lasted only 10 weeks, but within this period, he also had to undergo a medical checkup and blood tests. During the examination, doctors diagnosed him with sickle cell anemia, a condition that, when combined with excessive physical exertion, could lead to a heart attack. The decision to continue the program was left up to him. However, as the underwater exercises became increasingly unbearable, David eventually withdrew from training. Official records stated that he had pulled out due to sickle cell anemia, but deep down, he knew the real reason: he had not pushed himself hard enough. David was devastated. He saw this missed opportunity as a personal failure, one that could have changed the course of his life. After leaving the program, he took a low-paying job as a security guard at a hospital cemetery. Struggling to cope with his disappointment, he turned to food for comfort. His eating habits spiraled out of control. He would devour an entire box of donuts in one sitting, causing his weight to skyrocket to 300 pounds. One night at the hospital, David met a man who worked for Ecolab, a pest control company. The man explained that the job came with a free truck, no boss constantly overseeing his work, and a salary 30% higher than what David was earning. Intrigued by the offer, David decided to give it a shot. However, the job turned out to be much tougher than he expected. His nights were spent moving from one infested restaurant to another, catching rats and exterminating cockroaches. He set traps for rodents and sprayed insecticides in unsanitary kitchen spaces. After seeing the condition of these kitchens, David knew that if people witnessed what he had, they would never eat in such places again. He endured this grueling job for months, but one particular night changed everything. While treating a restaurant's kitchen, he uncovered a massive cockroach infestation beneath the sink. As he sprayed, hundreds of roaches scattered in all directions, some crawling up the walls, others flying onto his head and shoulders. At that moment, something inside him snapped. He had reached his breaking point. Dropping his equipment, he bolted out of the restaurant. When he got home, the first thing he did was take a long, scalding shower, trying to wash away the experience. As he dried off, he saw a television commercial for the U.S. Navy SEALs, one of the toughest elite forces in the world. The commanding officer in the ad spoke with conviction, calling for men who refused to settle for mediocrity, men who thrived on overcoming obstacles. David felt as though the message was speaking directly to him. Tired of drifting through life, he resolved to prove himself once again. However, his initial attempts to join were met with rejection. He was simply too overweight. Many officers dismissed him outright, but he refused to be discouraged. Eventually, he crossed paths with Officer Shallow, who saw potential in him. Shallow set a clear challenge. David had to lose 100 pounds within 3 months and retake the ASVAB test, scoring high enough to qualify. Determined, David launched himself into a brutal training regimen. Each day, he woke up at 4 a.m., ate a single banana for breakfast, and spent 2 hours on a stationary bike while studying the ASVAB guide. Afterward, he dedicated 2 hours to swimming practice, followed by intense gym sessions focusing on bench presses and leg exercises. For dinner, he kept his diet strict: grilled chicken breast and vegetables. Before going to bed, he cycled for another 2 hours. In addition to this grueling routine, he incorporated push-ups, pull-ups, and a 4-mile run. His unwavering discipline paid off. He met the minimum fitness requirements and passed the ASVAB. Overjoyed, he immediately called his mother to share the news. He had also achieved the necessary weight loss to qualify for the SEALs. But David knew, this was just the beginning. Chapter 4. Taking Souls. Becoming a Navy SEAL demands 6 months of grueling training known as BUD/S, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. This program is divided into 3 phases: physical conditioning, diving, and land warfare. Only about 20% of candidates make it through, as it pushes not only their physical abilities but also their mental resilience and determination. David attempted the training twice and failed, first due to a severe case of double pneumonia and then because of a knee injury. However, he refused to give up and decided to try again. He was given one last chance, with a warning that any further injury would mean permanent disqualification. Determined to succeed, he resolved to endure any pain, even if it meant breaking a bone. He became the only person to attempt BUD/S 3 times within a single year and ultimately succeeded. The SEALs are infamous for Hell Week, the most brutal part of the first training phase. During this week, trainees endure 130 relentless hours of extreme physical exertion. They perform push-ups, sit-ups, lunges, and flutter kicks, then plunge into the freezing ocean. While in the water, they must interlock their arms to prevent anyone from drowning. Next, instructors order them to roll in the wet sand until their bodies are completely covered, adding extra weight. Once coated in sand, they must repeat the grueling exercises. At times, they carry heavy loads or transport large inflatable boats through violent waves. Sleep is forbidden, warmth is a luxury they can't afford, and the yelling of instructors is constant. These instructors berate them day and night, calling them weak and useless, urging them to quit. David often questioned why he was there, but he understood that SEALs aren't simply made, being there was a choice. Bud's was more than a test of physical strength, it was an emotional battle. Many trainees couldn't handle it. They rang the bell 3 times, placed their helmets on the ground, and walked away. But David refused to be one of them. He trained himself to stay calm under pressure, proving to his instructors that neither he nor his fellow trainees could be broken. He formed a tight-knit group of 5 strong men, and together, they endured every hardship without quitting. In one exercise, they had to carry a heavy inflatable boat on their shoulders for 4 miles while their instructors sat back, sipping coffee, watching. To David, they seemed like enemies. Exhausted but unwilling to give in, he motivated his team, urging them to push harder and prove their strength. They lifted the boat higher, ran faster, and chanted, "You can't break us." David called this mindset taking souls, defying expectations and proving doubters wrong. During his 3rd attempt at Bud's, David came dangerously close to being disqualified. The relentless training had caused a fracture in his right ankle, making every step agonizing. To keep going, he developed a routine. Waking up at 3 a.m., wrapping his ankle in thick socks, layering it with duct tape, then adding another sock and more tape before lacing up his boots. He did the same for both ankles. Initially, the pain was unbearable, but over time, he felt nothing. Through every exercise, he reminded himself that becoming a Navy SEAL was his ultimate goal, and this was his final shot. He pushed through the agony using sheer willpower. In the second phase of training, one challenge required them to swim 100 meters with 16 pounds strapped to their waist and an 80-liter water tank tied to their body. Despite the intense difficulty, David persevered. On the final day, instructors put them through endless push-ups, sit-ups, burpees, and flutter kicks. Then, they were ordered to dig holes and bury themselves up to their necks. By this point, David no longer saw these exercises as torture, he started laughing. The instructors, surprised by his reaction, pulled him out of the hole, amused by his resilience. Finally, David graduated as a Navy SEAL. His mother attended the ceremony, witnessing his transformation. He became one of the few African Americans in Navy SEAL history to earn this honor. From a troubled childhood marked by struggles with literacy to a rebellious teenager stuck in dead-end jobs, David had completely reinvented himself. His journey wasn't just about physical strength, it was about mastering his mind and proving that he could overcome any obstacle. Chapter 5. Conclusion. For David, the journey didn't stop there, he constantly sought new ways to challenge himself. He enrolled in the Army Ranger School and graduated with the prestigious Honor Man Award. Additionally, he spent 2 years as a hiring officer, traveling to different schools to share his story and inspire students. David also built a successful career as a marathon runner and triathlete. He competed in the San Diego one-day ultramarathon, where he had to run 100 miles in 24 hours. He completed it in just 19 hours. He also participated in the Las Vegas Marathon and the Hurt 100 in Hawaii. David entered these races to qualify for the Badwater Ultramarathon, aiming to raise funds for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which provides scholarships to the children of fallen soldiers. The Badwater Ultramarathon spans a brutal 135 miles and is regarded as the most challenging foot race in the world. In his first attempt, David placed 5th, and in his second, he finished 3rd, raising $2 million for the foundation. After conquering ultramarathons, he transitioned to triathlons. He competed in the Ultraman World Championship in 2006 and the Ironman World Championship in 2008. As always, he trained rigorously, waking up early to run long distances, swimming for hours, and pushing himself on the bike. Though he often doubted himself, he never gave up. In 2009, while preparing for the race across America, a multi-state cycling competition, David noticed his heart racing at 150 beats per minute, which felt unusual. Doctors diagnosed him with atrial septal defect, ASD, a congenital condition causing a hole in the heart. They were stunned that he had survived such extreme training for so long. Surgery was necessary, and his heart was patched. The first procedure failed, but the second was successful. Not even ASD could stop him. His next goal was to break the Guinness World Record for the most pull-ups in 24 hours. The record stood at 4,020 pull-ups. David failed in his first and second attempts, experiencing shame and frustration. However, he didn't quit. He trained harder and refined his technique. On his third attempt, he succeeded, completing 4,030 pull-ups in just 17 hours. His record stood until 2014. Today, David is a fitness inspiration, motivating thousands of followers on Twitter and Instagram. He is frequently invited to universities and corporate events, where he inspires students, salespeople, and executives. His message is simple: people are capable of far more than they believe. He encourages them not to limit themselves, as focus and determination can help them achieve what once seemed impossible. Thank you for listening to our summary of Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. We hope you found his story as powerful and inspiring as we did. David's journey teaches us that no matter how tough life becomes, we all have the strength to endure and emerge stronger. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more transformative book summaries. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and proving the impossible wrong.